Hello, everyone. My name is John Murata, and I'm a policy associate at the Urban Institute. We're so excited that you've joined us today for this wide-ranging discussion about apprenticeships in the public sector. We're thrilled to see so much interest in learning more about how apprenticeship can be leveraged in the public sector and can engage youth in early and meaningful career experiences. Before I get into today's agenda, I just want to go through a few housekeeping notes. The event is being recorded and the recording will be posted online afterward. All participants are muted, but you can send questions or comments in the Q&A at any time. We have closed captions turned on. If you'd like to adjust your settings, you can just click the live transcription button at the bottom of your screen, and you can tweet about the event using the hashtag #LiveAtUrban. We have a great program for you today. We'll start with a presentation from Derek Ramsey, formerly the Secretary of Education and Workforce Development in Kentucky, who will discuss his experience starting public sector apprenticeship pilot programs and the case for sustaining such programs from his perspective. After Derek's opening remarks, Urban's Diana Elliott will explain why public sector apprenticeships should be part of every state's economic recovery strategy, which we explored in a recent blog post and a freshly released fact sheet. We are then pleased to invite two current youth apprentices into the conversation to share reflections about their respective experiences with Denver Public Schools and Prince George's County Public Schools. Andrew Campbell from the Urban Institute will moderate that conversation. Finally, our partner Dina Klimkina from the Council of State Governments will join us to talk about the exciting public sector apprenticeship consortium that Urban and CSG are launching together. Dina will provide details about how states can apply to participate in the consortium and receive technical assistance from Urban and CSG. We're aiming to save about 15 minutes at the end of the hour to answer as many questions as possible from the audience. If we don't get to all of your questions, then we will follow up with answers after the event. And for those who aren't as familiar with the Urban Institute, we are a nonprofit research organization based in Washington, D.C. that elevates evidence in policy conversations and decision-making. Urban's Youth Apprenticeship Intermediary Project is a U.S. Department of Labor funded award that began in June 2019. The vision for this project is to expand registered apprenticeship opportunities for youth ages 16 to 21 and to raise awareness about the potential of apprenticeship for engaging youth early in rewarding, paid, and credential earning opportunities. As an intermediary, we work with employers to enhance their understanding about registered apprenticeship and explore how it can help address their challenges. We provide free technical assistance to develop and register new programs, and we also provide modest monetary incentives that offset some of the employer's costs in training and mentoring apprentices. The overall goal is to help sign at least 225 new youth apprentices every year, and we are pleased to report that we have nearly wrapped up our second year and have signed more than 500 apprentices since the launch of the project. So without further ado, we are delighted to welcome Derek Ramsey. It's not often that those of us in workforce development or the public sector get to participate in events that feature an All-American football player and Super Bowl team. Beyond those accomplishments, Derek has a distinguished track record of leadership in public service. In 2004, he began his first stint in a state government role when he was appointed Deputy Secretary of Commerce in Kentucky. After 7 years of serving as a director of athletics at Coppin State University, in December of 2015, Derek was called upon to once again serve the citizens of the Commonwealth, this time as Secretary of the Kentucky Labor Cabinet. In 2018, Governor Bevin then appointed him as Secretary of the Education and Workforce Development Cabinet. In those two posts, among many other achievements, Derek ushered in a significant expansion of registered apprenticeship in Kentucky, both in terms of overall numbers and the breadth of industries and occupations offering registered apprenticeship. Lately, Derek serves on the Board of Trustees for the University of Kentucky and is a non-resident fellow here at the Urban Institute. With that, Derek, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, John, for your kind words. As John stated, going back to 2015, when I first came on board as Secretary of Labor, I would go into our meetings and I would talk with the governor as well as the other secretaries about this thing called apprenticeship. When I took this job, one of the things that I was more than excited about was the fact that I believe that the apprenticeship and the apprenticeship model could change the trajectory of earning here in the Commonwealth for a generation, if not two. And so when I would tell my colleagues, the other secretaries, about this incredible opportunity, they would snicker. And they would say, well, I think you're a little bit more excited about it and what it can actually do. And so as time went on, uh, in state government, from my perspective, people have come to state government for basically two reasons: for stability, one, and second, the defined benefits. Well, in the state of Kentucky, we went away from defined benefits and went to a 403 and a 457 retirement, which meant that if you didn't contribute, you had no monies at the end of the day. And so what that did was it made us like every other business up and down the street. So we were now competing all of a sudden for employees. But when I first noticed this, I had to do something. When I was labor secretary, I had these investigators. And these investigators, they were fresh out of college. They would come to us, and they would be there 12 to 18 months, no more than 18 months. We were paying them $36,000, $38,000 per year. The open market paid 68 to 70. And so with that in mind, with this quick turnover, it was costing us a lot. And so I sat down with my team and said, guys, we got to figure out a way to save our employees. We got to figure out a way to save monies, because anytime you go through rehiring process, it costs you money in addition to the salaries. So we started talking about, okay, how can we do this? And so I started visiting with Eastern Kentucky University to see if we could come up with a partnership. And in that partnership, what we had agreed to do was we would bring these folk on for 30 hours. They would then go to EKU, and after a 4-year stint, they will come on board as an investigator. But with the apprenticeship model, when the retention is 81%, we felt that was in our favor. And so we started that process with EKU. Well, as time would have it, we would be in our meetings, and other secretaries, they were starting to ask me questions about this thing called apprenticeship. And so it was no longer funny, because they at that time could not find employees. And the first to approach me was the secretary for IT. We had this crazy rule in there where you had to have a bachelor's degree before you could come to work in state government at that capacity. Well, in IT, as we all know, there are a lot of people that don't have degrees that are much smarter than those that have it. And that's not to disparage or talk down toward having a degree, but that's the facts. And so with that in mind, I started working with the IT secretary, and we brought on some folk. And that was the first thing. But before I got there, I had to work with personnel to figure out how we could do this, because this was a new animal, if you would, for state government. And so we then talked about salaries, how we could have a fair salary, what kind of benefits, what kind of pay we're talking about. All this had to be decided, grade level in which that we'd bring them in. And so I was fortunate enough to work with our personnel secretary. He and I and my HR person, we came up with a way that we could do this that we thought was fair. And of course, it depended on the area that you were in. Uh, the compensation was higher or lower in that regard. And so personnel worked with me. We got IT squared away. Health and Family Services, they too needed help because there was a shortage, or there is a shortage, of social workers. And so we work with them. We also work with military affairs, and in my cabinet, education and workforce. And so we were one of the first states in the country to have apprenticeship in public works. And so we've grown this thing and we continue to grow it because we knew that as things went on, the desire and the need was going to be growing. And as I talked to some of my former coworkers, that need continues to grow. And so we started talking about, okay, if we're going to do this, what are the benefits of it? And so the benefits are tremendous. One being the 81% retention rate for folk that were apprentices. They have a tendency to stay with that person that at first invested in them. And the second thing is you get to grow your own. You know, and what I mean by growing your own, you have a person that you develop. They get to see how your organization works. They get to see if this is something that they're really interested in. And so it has started to grow. And so with that in mind, uh, the state government, or state government rather, as I would talk to different folk around state government, it was just so interesting how the mindset has started to change. This whole thing about apprenticeship. And now, you know, as you talk around the country about apprenticeship, it's no longer a new thing. It's no longer a thing that folks are saying, what are they doing? Why? You know, and then we start talking about benefits to employees. Benefits to employees, real time work experience while being compensated. The opportunity to refine soft skills. And what happens so frequently today, people talk about soft skills and the fact that people don't have those things. Well, as an apprentice, you get to do those real time. You get compensated at a real dollar value. And you also get to figure out if this is something that you want to do for the rest of your life. Apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is something that I wholeheartedly believe in. You know, you go back some 40 years when I was coming out of high school. At that time, there were two on-ramps, if you would, to success. One on-ramp was college prep, and the other on-ramp was vocational. Well, what's happened over the last 40 years? What's happened over the last 40 years is the apprenticeship has either been stigmatized out, squeezed out, or just flat shut down. Well, in our country today, we have 330 million people. We have 500 to 600,000 journeymen and journeywomen. The average age of those is at 60 years of age. And so there's a dire need for these apprentices to get this knowledge and for them to come into the workplace. I think my time is kind of expiring there, so I'll be around for any questions. But again, I believe the apprenticeship is the thing of the future.
Great. Thank you so much, Derek, for those wonderful remarks.
Thank you.
And you know, I'd say, you know, as Secretary Ramsey just described, Kentucky's public sector apprenticeship programs have been an important example. And as he described, not just within agencies in Kentucky, but this has been an important example for our thinking at Urban as well. So our team at Urban, who works on apprenticeship, thinks about apprenticeship, really began to dig and think more deeply about how impactful public sector apprenticeships were, and if they were more widely implemented, that this potential for transformative change, much like Derek was describing. And at Urban, a public sector apprenticeships really sit at the intersection of many important issue areas for us as an organization. This includes issues of equity, issues of economic mobility, and government performance. So as Andrew Campbell, John Murata, and I described recently in a blog, public sector apprenticeships can also catalyze economic recovery in multiple ways. And public sector apprenticeships have tremendous potential for helping with economic recovery as we move forth following the pandemic. So what are some of the reasons? We outlined 4 reasons for this. First, recruitment and retention has become an important issue in state and local government hiring, right? Derek just talked about this in Kentucky and how this is really an important catalyst for thinking about apprenticeship. Apprenticeship really is that ideal solution. Young people can be exposed to careers in public service. They can learn on the job. They can be mentored, paid, earn credentials, and really make important contributions to government. And we know that young people are especially motivated to do good and to do good at work. So this should be the perfect intersection for getting young people into public sector jobs and for government to attract and retain a capable workforce. Second, apprenticeship supports economic mobility and racial equity because it opens doors to opportunities. Degrees and credentials are not typically a barrier for entry, right? As Derek just described, you don't need IT people to have a 4-year college degree. It's fine, but it's really not necessary to do the job. So public sector jobs, if we have public sector apprenticeships, it can really open that door. So public sector jobs are also historically stable. They have family sustaining wages, benefits, and flexibility. They've also been historically an important employer of Black workers. Third, public sector apprenticeships can rebuild the public sector workforce and serve as a training ground for the public sector and the private sector. Layoffs from the pandemic and waves of retirements have put state and local governments in need of rebuilding its workforce capacity. Apprentices can be trained for occupations that are most in demand, preparing them with skills to be successful in either the public or the private sector. Fourth, some experts believe a full labor market recovery will not happen until 2022. So investments made now in workforce development opportunities like apprenticeship will be really important for the long-term recovery and resilience of workers. Apprenticeships can mitigate negative consequences of labor market downturns by helping young workers build skills and contribute productively to the recovery. So this past week, actually just today, right before this event, we released a fact sheet in conjunction with this event that really confirms that there's a lot of opportunity to grow public sector programs. While most public sector apprenticeships in the US at present are in public safety, for example, in firefighting and among EMTs, there's tremendous diversity in the types of programs that are offered and great possibilities for the future. They're a terrific way to engage youth in careers, whether they stay in public service or train for jobs in the public sector. So we are just delighted today to feature 2 youth apprentices from 2 different programs and parts of the country who will share their experiences. They'll be led in conversation by Andrew Campbell, a policy program associate at Urban Institute. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew and to our 2 youth apprentices to carry the conversation.
Thanks so much, Diana. And as Diana said, I am thrilled to welcome Arlith Aguilar, a paraprofessional apprentice with CareerWise Colorado, and who is employed by Denver Public Schools, and Ajahi Jernigan, a building maintenance apprentice with nearby Prince George's County Public Schools. Ajahi, Arlith, do you want to turn on your videos and come off mute?
Hello.
Thank you both so
I'm
much.
at work right now, so sorry if you hear any like background noise a little bit, but hey, hello, my name is Jahi. I work at PG County Public Schools in the maintenance department, like you just said. I do HVAC. I was hired right out of high school. It was a program they had, apprenticeship program. My 11th grade summer, they had contacted me and said, "Oh, how would you like to work for us?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" And then later down the pipeline, it was like, "Well, what would you think about working full time?" So here I am.
That's great. And bonus points on bonus points for joining us while you're at work and on the job.
No problem.
So appreciative. Well, I would like to start off the conversation by just asking both of you to share how you first became aware of the apprenticeship opportunity. And maybe Arlith, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Ajahi.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Arleth. Like Andrew mentioned, I am currently working at a elementary school for DPS, and I was first aware of this program by my high school. So I was a I was actually a senior in my high school, and since like my junior year of high school, I was always like looking for this type of opportunity. I know my school did offer other apprenticeships with like health, technology, other things that weren't really like my thing. I feel like my thing has always been like little kids and like education, being a teacher. And I would always like go and bother like at the office, like, is there anything I could do? And I remember like my senior year of high school, the apprenticeship like coordinator came like super excited with me, and she was like, "Hey, guess what, there's this opportunity for you to work as an apprenticeship with education." And I was like super excited about it, and we right away like started doing the process for it. And I feel like she knew I always wanted this opportunity, so she came with me first. And yeah, I guess it was just like a luck that I was a senior year of high school, was my last year, and I was able to get this amazing opportunity.
That's great. That's great. Ajahi, how did you first become aware of the apprenticeship program? I think you just started to talk about it.
Yeah.
And also maybe what excited you about the program and made you want to do it?
So I'll say my story in a sense is a little bit different from hers. For us, so at the school I go to, they offered. So I go to a went to a VOTEC school. So they had electrical, masonry, HVAC. They had nursing. They had cosmetology, and like 2 or 3 others, automotive, and the county, I guess, came together and said, all right, out of these 3 trades, we want to hire and or have an apprenticeship program for these specific jobs. So the class was a 2-year class. So I had to go in 11th grade and then also have that 12th grade as well. So what ended up happening was, I want to say maybe my mid 11th grade year, this lady came along. Some of you all may know her, Miss Amy, which is who put me in contact with you all. And she was like, "Oh, how would y'all like to work for the summer, get some on the job experience and stuff like that?" And I thought it was a great idea because I was already in HVAC, and I was like, "Oh, this seems cool." So then I want to say the summer passed, and then went great, all of that's good stuff. And then, because it was other schools that had it as well, but when it came up to getting higher, it was a little different. So I want to say it was maybe 22 of us mixed with HVAC, carpentry, electrical, masonry, and I think it was one other in plumbing. And then what happened was they said they're hiring 8 out of 22 of us. And then we all put in our resumes and stuff like that. And then I also happened to be hired. And I'll say another thing was that when it came up to the hiring process, it was kind of predicated upon how your experience was during the summer and things like that. And yeah, like we had to go through the works. We had to go to the official website and put in all our resumes and upload them to the system and all of that. But yeah, it was a great program.
That's great. It sounds like it was a really, congratulations on continuing on and being
Thank you.
hired. It sounds like the summer went well.
Yeah, it did.
I'd like to stay with you, Jahi, for this next
Okay.
question. Can you just describe a typical week in your apprenticeship program for us?
Okay, so it's a little different because COVID had happened.
Yeah.
COVID happened. I'll say that's another part I left out. My 12th grade year, we worked a little bit. Like I had a half day. So instead of me going to HVAC class, I went to work. And then I come back like during lunch. But then COVID had happened, and then I didn't go to work for like about a year, give or take. But to continue on of what the question you asked was, I'll say a typical week. Usually this isn't our schedule, but because of COVID, it has been and will be for probably maybe the next year or so. I gotta be at work by 6 a.m. I live about 30 minutes away from my work at, so I gotta leave out at like 5:25 a.m. every morning. I get to work, I sign in, then we go out and look at our work orders that we need to fill out, whether it be an exhaust fan isn't working or no AC or no heat or whatever the case may be. And then we get in a work truck, we go out, we go do that, and then it's like that the entire day. And then we go home at the end of the day. But I'll say because of COVID, a lot of things are a little different. Like they want all the exhaust fans done. So we're working sometimes 12, 13-hour days, Monday through Friday, and then work another 8 hours on Saturday. So I end up working 65, 70 hours a week easily.
Wow.
But yeah, it's pretty busy right now.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I can only imagine. It reminds you how important things like those exhaust fans are and
For
air
sure.
circulation. And I'm sure a never-ending stream of work orders and things like that. It sounds
Exactly.
Is there anything that you would say has been, the most rewarding part of the program for you, or any important skills that you feel like you're taking from it?
I'll say for me personally, my biggest thing was avoiding student loan debt. I'll say that was the biggest upside. Yeah, there are like financial incentives and things like that, but when it comes down to what my goals were, it was like, all right. And college was an option for me. I could have went, I applied, I got accepted to a few colleges, but I was like, I want to avoid student loan debt. I'll say that was a big incentive for me. I don't know how you all's program is going to be ran, but for me specifically, they're paying for all of my trade school stuff. I don't come out of pocket for anything. And then I'll say also when it comes down to just how the workflow is, like it's nonprofit because I work for the county, so I don't have to go out and sell people stuff they don't need, or it's real chill. It's not a lot of pressure on me. Like, yeah, they push me to do better, but it's not like I have to go out and do things that aren't, I don't want to say not right per se, but I don't have to go out and work 24 hours a day to 7 days a week because it's for profit. And I think a lot of people don't realize the difference between the two, because it's pressure for you to do better and to move up and things like that, but there's no pressure for you to sell things to people or anyone that's on your back because something that happened or whatever the case may be. And there's room for error. Like if I was to, because I'm learning, like I know stuff, but I'm learning as well. If I was to break something, no one's really on you about it because it's all funded through the government and things like that, rather it being, okay, we have to then go out and buy it again and again or whatever the case may be. But I'll say those are my incentives of it. It's a lot to learn. I was able to avoid that, and it's just an overall great program.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I know the debt piece, resonates with me as something I wish I could have avoided for sure. But also, yeah, the kind of the nonprofit culture obviously attracted me as well in my career path.
Yeah.
Arlith, kind of speaking to what Ajahi said, I'm sure it's been kind of a challenging, but also hopefully a rewarding experience in the last year to work directly with kids during COVID. Can you tell us a little bit more about what a week looks like for you, and maybe, what has been rewarding about the experience?
Yeah, so for me, it has been a little bit different for the past 2 years. I have been working in the elementary school for 2 years. So the first year was different because I was still in high school. I was a senior in high school and I still had to attend high school and still be going to work. So what that would look like, I would go to high school 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would be going to the elementary school. And I would work the 8 full hours Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so how that would look like, I would go in every day, I would welcome the students, sit down with them in a circle, and then wait for everybody to join. We would just get our day started. So for those 8 hours, my first year, I thought it was amazing because I was able to work with ECE all the way to fifth graders. So I was able to get experience from each grade and not only just like one specific grade. So I thought that was amazing just because I could also learn on especially what grade I want to teach in the future. So during those 8 hours, I would be like going like an hour with like ECE, an hour with kinder, and just helping out the teacher. And I think it was just amazing, like the experience. But I feel like my second year was a lot more me gaining a lot more experience just because it did look a little bit different because of COVID. And I was only able to work with two teachers instead of being able to work with every grade. And I was working with fourth and fifth graders, and I would pull out a small group every day. And again, it did look different now because I am in college, so that I do have like college classes like all over the place. It's not like it wasn't like a set schedule like my high school. So I do go in every day now, but I don't work the full hours. Like I do have a room where I have the opportunity to do my homework and my school classes, which I thought was really helpful from the elementary school to give me that chance to still do school and being at work. And I will pull out a small group of students, which I got really attached to. And I don't know if it's good but bad because I know they're going to end up going to middle school. And I remember that the students were, I think like the going back to the second question, what was like the most thing like that I gained from this experience was that I also got to learn from the students. Not only were they like learning from me, but I was also learning their experience and like everything that they go through. And also, another great thing that I loved was that my college courses were things that I was actually doing in elementary school. So, one of my classes, let's say that I was learning about phonics, about how to teach phonics to students. And I was actually doing group of phonics, so I was able to combine both like my college classes and my apprenticeship together and like do what I'm learning in my college and put it in where I'm working at the elementary school.
That's great. And I think I heard you say that you were, the first year that you were getting to experience different grades of students and who you liked working with. Are you interested in continuing, after your apprenticeship in kind of early childhood education, or has this experience helped you make that decision?
Yeah, so actually, I think I forgot to mention that Career Wise does have like a program of like a 2 to 3 year program with like being an apprenticeship. And I actually got offered a full time job at the elementary school that I'm at as a full time para. So that I did become a full time para a week ago. So I have a week being a full-time para working with ECE 4. So there are some students in there that they're like ECE, but I feel like I love ECE, but I feel like the grade that I want to do would be like fourth grade. Just because like from that first year that I went to, I work with fourth grade and also the second year. And I just think fourth graders are amazing. So even though I'm working with ECE right now, I feel like I love ECE, but in the future, I would definitely do fourth grade.
That's great. That's great. Um, Well, Arleth and Ajayi, I wish we could keep talking for the next hour, but I'm getting the signal that it's time to start wrapping up. Before we transition, though, I just want to kind of open up in the opportunity if there's anything you would share with either high school students who might consider an apprenticeship program or high school leaders who are considering starting an apprenticeship program for their students. Maybe Ajayi, we'll start with you, and then Arleth will give you the last
Okay.
word.
I'll say my biggest thing when it comes up to the students that are interested in getting into an apprenticeship or students that are on the ropes about it and aren't necessarily sure yet, I'll say evaluate what your personal goals are of whatever you would like to do career-wise or what your interests are. If you like to be around and everything is always different, and that's how I am. I don't like to stay in the same place. I like to move around all the time. This a job similar to this, whether it be a maintenance job or even what Arleth does when it comes up to teaching. You're moving. You're always around. This is for you. I would say when it comes up to people that are considering creating an apprenticeship program, I would say something I guess you could say you could learn when it came up to like when ours had started, it was like some difficulties because, for example, in PG County, students can't ride in county vehicles. But mind you, I was a student riding in a county vehicle and I was against the county's policy. So I say make sure all of the legalities are talked over and making sure everything is running smoothly. And I'll say also another thing is when it comes up to structuring how it's going to be, because I'll say for us, it was certain people that, okay, we worked that summer, but COVID had happened. So I can't really blame the system per se because a lot is going on. But I'll say end all be all for the students that are interested. I say completely go for it. I can speak for my field specifically. There are a lot of people that are needing an HVAC currently and a lot of other trades because a lot of people don't get into it now. It's a lot of money to make if that's what your incentive is, and there are a lot of great benefits of doing it as well. And then for the people that are interested in starting an apprenticeship program, I say it gives a lot of people another route on what you can do after high school. Because I feel as though, and I can only speak for myself, college was really pushed when I was in high school, but it was no other alternatives. And I say this gives people another choice of, okay, I may not want to go to college because of student loan debt or because I didn't just like school or whatever the case may be, or I want to start working and start a career, whatever your reason may be. This just gives you another avenue to go where you're able to learn a lot, you're moving around a lot, it's good benefits, and all of those other great opportunities.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Arleth?
Yeah, for me, I think I feel like for students that want to take this opportunity, I feel like definitely do it. I know that I definitely did learn a lot from this experience. I did gain a lot of skills and I was able to work in a professional job that I think it's really important for everyone to eventually like learn in a way, just because you do learn a lot of like skills. And also, I feel like as a student, you have the opportunity to go into this apprenticeship and you can learn and see if this is for you. So I know that I was always passionate about education, but let's say that an individual was thinking about being a teacher and they get to experience it, but if it's not their thing, they don't have to technically waste their 4 years in a college doing something that they are not sure what they if they want to do it or not. So I think this is just like a great opportunity to not only like learn a lot of new things, but also to know if this is for you or if it's not for you. And for individuals that want like leaders at schools that want to like put this out for students and like give them this opportunity, I know that I did learn a lot from like my senior classes, my college classes that I was able to put into my job. So I think like that is something really amazing that individuals need to think about, that whatever you're teaching your students, that they can also be teaching other people. So I believe, I don't know, I don't think I can express how much I have learned in this opportunity. So I feel like it's something that everybody should have the opportunity to get.
Oh, wow. Thank you both so much. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure our audience did as well. But I am now thrilled to introduce Dina Klimkina to share more about the Public Sector Apprenticeship Consortium. Dina is the Program Director of Workforce Development Policy Portfolio at the Council of State Governments. Dina manages CSG's programming with the State Exchange on Employment and Disability, the Center on Advancing Policy on Employment for Youth, and Kentucky's Retaining Employment and Talent After Injury or Illness Network, or RETAIN. She also performs research and analysis, provides TA, develops reports and presentations, and conducts outreach with stakeholders as needed. Prior to CSG, she worked at the University of Kentucky, the One Earth Future Foundation, the Center on Rights Development, and the United Nations, among other organizations. Welcome, Dina. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. And thank you so much to Arleth and Ajahi for talking to us and sharing about your experience. And of course, thank you so much to Urban for hosting us and for allowing us to learn about public sector apprenticeships. So today I'll be talking with you about the Public Sector Apprenticeship Consortium. Next slide. First, I'll tell you a little bit about CSG. So we are the Council of State Governments, which is the nation's only nonpartisan nonprofit organization serving all 3 branches of state government. So we are a region-based forum, as you can see on the screen. And we really just work to foster the exchange of insights and ideas to help state officials shape public policy. And in essence, we work with to champion state government to advance the common good. And to that end, we work with governors, cabinet officials, executive staff, legislative members, Supreme Court officials, all across the country to provide technical assistance, conduct research, and facilitate the exchange of best practices. So next slide. So we are thrilled to announce that CSG, in partnership with the Urban Institute, is developing a public sector apprenticeship consortium. This will be 5 states that will convene during CSG's 2021 National Conference. And the consortium will equip and empower state policymakers, particularly legislators and executive branch officials, among others, focused on workforce development, education, and economic policy issues to develop and implement public sector apprenticeships in their states. Next slide, please. This initiative will provide a forum for participating states to learn about public sector apprenticeship best practices, become familiar with, and discuss existing apprenticeship efforts in their states, and create an action plan for developing or improving public sector apprenticeship programs in their state. Consortium benefits include opportunities for team building and interbranch collaboration among various branches and partners needed for the development of apprenticeships, access to technical assistance and in-state programming with subject matters from the Urban Institute, the Council of State Governments, and beyond, greater understanding of current regulatory environments in participant states, and help identifying barriers and challenges to implementing programs, the tools needed to develop a state action plan, an opportunity to learn from other states, and access to our staff to facilitate conversations between state offices and other stakeholders. Next slide, please. So given that this will be our first pilot year, we will select 5 states to launch the consortium. State teams will consist of 5 to 6 members per state, including individuals from state governor's offices and other executive branch offices, such as State Office of Apprenticeships and executive cabinets involved in labor, employment, workforce, and education issues. States do not currently need to have a civic sector apprenticeship program to participate. We are looking for a variety of stakeholders interested in improving their state's apprenticeship programs. And further, while it is good to have a team in mind, it is not necessary. After selection, we will work closely with project leaders to identify most relevant and critical stakeholders for each 6-person state team, based on each state's unique strengths, challenges, and industries. It will require a collaborative approach across state government. We're also interested in including states which have already begun developing their apprenticeship programs and are interested in expanding or scaling programs into new fields of work, such as STEM, healthcare, or expanding opportunities for new groups, such as youth and young adults. For funding, if selected, CSG will fund all essential costs associated with participation in the consortium, including travel and accommodations during the convenings. And we will provide meeting materials and technical assistance resources in collaboration with the Urban Institute. This program does not provide financial support for the launching of the actual program. Next slide, please. To apply, you can find the application at csg.org/COI/apprenticeship, and the deadline will be 5 p.m. On June 15th on Eastern Standard Time. An application should be submitted via email to sgeiger@csg.org. It's on the screen, and we'll also put it in the chat with the subject line, Application for Public Sector Apprenticeships. We're also happy to assist you in the development of your application, and we'll provide technical assistance to interested applicants through virtual meetings or email correspondence. It will be the same email to request that assistance. So I'll do a little bit of an overview of the application and talk a little bit about the questions. So really first, all that we want for you to do is describe what is already currently happening in your state or what you are interested in developing. Second, it is not required that you have launched these programs in your state, but we just want to know that there's different stages of development going on. Secondly, we'd like you to describe your goals for public sector apprenticeships in your state, including how many apprenticeships you'd like to establish, the occupations for which apprenticeships may be offered, and we can also help you identify these potential avenues. We'd also like to know the populations you plan to engage, whether it's youth or other underrepresented populations. Urban and CSG have experience in working with a variety of these groups, including apprenticeships for individuals with disabilities, among others. And finally, we'd like to know the estimated number of apprenticeships we'd like you to train. Next slide, please. Next slide, thank you. So we'd also want to hear a little bit about the challenges you anticipate facing. We would love to help you overcome these barriers, but we just want to know that there's kind of thinking around that, as well as your interest in public sector apprenticeships and how this consortium will help advance the state workforce development goals and the talent needs of your state government. And now I'm happy to take any questions on the application, or I will be happy to pass it back to John. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Yes, please stick around. And can we get our other speakers back to answer some questions that have come in? We have a couple questions for Secretary Ramsey.
Okay, can you hear me, John?
Yes,
Trying to click my video, it won't allow me to kick back in. Let's see, start my video. Let's try that. There we go.
So
before I get to those questions, John, can I just comment on something that Ajay and Ali said? Ajay, you know, and I've spoken to a number of young people over the years, and I would tell them if I did not have a scholarship in hand, there's no way I'd take on all that college debt. And so when he said that, when Ajay said that, I was just smiling from ear to ear. And of course, the Leith with the education thing is so interesting because one of the challenges I had going across the state was education thought that we were competition. Well, we're not competition at all. And what we are is just another option. And so I was able to get the commissioner of K-12 to go on the set with me. And we
it looks like we lost Derek. All right, so hopefully.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, Oh, Derek, are you back?
I'm back. That bad penny. I'm back, John.
All right. Well, how about we jump to a question for you?
Sure.
I'd like to hear Secretary Ramsey's thoughts on how to encourage our state leaders to go beyond verbal support to actually creating public sector apprenticeships.
That is a very good question, but it's an easy one to answer. And prior to our show today, we were talking about where we are here in Kentucky as a state, and from where I see where we are as a country. They're going to need employees. I mean, state government's going to need them, federal government's going to need them, the private sector is going to need them. So rather than giving lip service, they need to go and talk about how they can work with partners because there's a shortage of employees. And as I was sharing with Diane earlier, for example, 08, 09, that downturn in our country. Well, when we left office in 2019, there were still over 200,000 people that had not come back to the workplace from 08, 09. And so I'm frightened by what's going to happen from this one because the last year, we had over 700,000 people here in the Commonwealth file for unemployment. And my fear is that 2030, we'll still have 300,000 people that did not come back to the workplace. So with that in mind, I think the politicians, I think the people that have influence, they need to spread the word and spread it quickly about apprenticeship and about the incredible opportunities. And as I stated earlier, we got 330 million people in America. We have 500 to 600,000 journeymen and journeywomen in our country with an average age of 60. And the pipeline's empty. We got to fill it up. We got to fill it up. And as Jai said, incredible opportunities. $60,000 is the average income for a journeyman around our country. The median income for a family of four in Kentucky is less than $45,000. Do I need to say any more about opportunities?
And that's great. And we have a kind of related follow-up to that, Derek, so I'll stick with you.
Sure.
The question is, how can local government, and I would say this applies to state governments as well, overcome real or perceived barriers in their merit systems to creating public sector or youth apprenticeships?
I worked hand in hand with my HR person in my cabinet. I also worked hand in hand with the personnel secretary. He helped walk me through because there are a lot of sticky things in there in state government that you have to be careful of, certainly that I did not know about. My HR person did, and certainly the personnel secretary. So they just need to work hand in hand with their personnel person to navigate this. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's not rocket science at all. It's just a desire, and it just creates opportunities for people to get into the workplace.
Dina, we have a couple of questions about the consortium. So one question is, how can you get involved in the consortium as a stakeholder in your state?
That is a fantastic question. So you could either go apply on behalf of your state. And if we see that there's numerous applications from one state, what we can do is actually actively work to make sure that there's a connected group of stakeholders that are working together. Or if you are interested but don't know how to kind of build this coalition, we can make sure that we are getting you involved in it later on and making sure that you're connected with that group. And we can also provide you with connections and resources to work with other folks in your state.
Thank you. This next one I think could be open to all of you. The question is, are you aware of pre-apprenticeship on-ramps into public service apprenticeships? As we know, these can be key in providing equitable access for those who may need to get their skills up to speed to prepare for success in an apprenticeship. Anyone want to weigh in?
Well,
I can wait. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Go ahead, Diana.
I was going to say one recent example, and I don't know the age range, so I don't know if they're employing youth in this. We're working with an intermediary on another project at Urban that's doing a pre-apprenticeship program in tech and is getting folks up to speed with tech skills so that they're ready to be in apprenticeships, some of which are actually in state government. So there are examples out there of intermediaries doing this work, and it's been really successful, at least in this one case of this one intermediary. And I should note too that this pre-apprenticeship happens to be free of charge, which is incredibly important for opening up these doors for opportunities, right? Because as we heard from Ajahi and Arlith, cost is a consideration, and more options, particularly low cost or free options, are better than none.
I might add also, Rockcastle County here in Kentucky, there's a shortage of healthcare people, nurses in particular. And we put together a partnership with the track program that we have here in Kentucky for that. And so I think that to answer that question is there, one, there has to be a desire. Second, of course, there has to be a need. And when you put need and desire, things normally happen. And so I think in that first class, we had 7 to 10 young ladies that started this healthcare program or at the hospital. So just a need and desire to do so. And again, when I talk about filling these jobs, you gotta have people that are interested. And if I'm a business owner, with there being an 81% retention for a person that I gave their first shot to, man, that's attractive to me.
I'll just hop in for a second here as well. So yes, there's a lot of really fantastic on-ramping programs, and a lot of them also move through community college systems. So these are really great opportunities to start engaging youth and young adults in a pre-apprenticeship. So I know Portland Community College has this. Minnesota has a program, I think it's called Minnesota Pipeline. Also written Yes We Code. They have a few others. So there's a lot of really fantastic examples out there. And I would encourage to look at not only intermediaries, but also community college systems.
Thanks, Dina. I'm gonna go to Diana for this next one, and this might be all we have time for. Will there be a focus within the consortium on creating apprenticeships within local governments?
For me, yeah. So of course, I think we see some examples here of school systems that have done that and how successful they've been, right? So certainly the example from PG County suggests that. Now, CareerWise Colorado is an intermediary that acts across Colorado, but again, they engage with 4 different school systems who've done this. And certainly in our work on the Youth Apprenticeship Intermediary Program, we're working with many local school systems, right? Including in Tennessee, in Iowa, and potentially in Michigan as well. So there's lots and lots of terrific examples of local governments, and particularly with youth apprenticeship, local school districts who are doing this and doing this really well.
John, if I might add quickly, also there's some counties here in Kentucky where we did these model programs where circuit judges and county judges, they would have these young people that came and worked with them as a pre-apprentice, all with the thought of going to college and then majoring in political science. So there's a lot going on out there, and I can't mention enough the program we have here in Kentucky, a pre-program. It's called TRACK, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but Mary Taylor does one heck of a job with that. And so, again, here in Kentucky, we were, if not the first, certainly one of the first states that did public apprenticeship. That's something that we're extremely proud of.
Well, thank you both. I want to respect everyone's time, so we're going to wrap up. Thanks again to all of our speakers, to Derek, Diana, Andrew, Ajahi, Arlith, and Dina. And thank you to the audience for joining us. I want to remind you that the recording will be posted online and shared after the event, and we will try to answer some more questions after the event as well, and we'll send those out. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.